The Russian army has failed in its mission to attack Kupiansk along both banks of the Oskol River. In recent weeks, the Russians have suffered losses there, not only in men, but also in the territory they control, writes military observer Alexander Kovalenko. The right bank of the Oskol suffered from nonsense, and that's enough. In the Kupyansk direction, the west group of troops is in a kind of split with the threat of ligament rupture. He describes the situation of the occupiers in the Kupyansk region. In November last year, the Russians managed to create a bridgehead on the right western bank of the Oskol to support the main forces' offensive on Kupyansk on the left eastern bank. However, after 4 months, the bridgehead remains very small, but it cost the aggressor army heavy losses, Kovalenko writes. Moreover, in recent weeks, the Ukrainian defense forces have pushed the Russians back from several positions on this bridgehead. Kovalenko notes that the Russian 69th Motorized Rifle Division is slowly but surely being worn down in the fighting on the right bank of the Oskol. And now these sacrifices look even more senseless, since the Ukrainian armed forces have also pushed back the Russians on the main attack route to Kupyansk, in the area of the village of Sinkovka on the left bank of the Oskol. So the question arises, why was it needed? But for Russians, the answer to another question is much more important. What to do next? Writes Kovalenko. Commander-in-Chief General Alexander Zelenski announced the losses of Russian occupation forces in Kursk Oblast. 54,900 personnel, of which 22,200 are irreversible losses, he wrote. These numbers clearly demonstrate the effect of the Kursk operation on the broader battlefield. Now imagine that these troops were not engaged and depleted in Kursk Oblast, but instead sent toward Pokrovsk, Chasiv Yar, Toretsk, or the Lyman-Kupyansk axis. If that were the case, we would not be discussing Ukraine's successful counteroffensive operations in Toretsk or the defense of Chasiv Yar, but rather urban combat in Kostiantynivka, he highlighted. Instead of counterattacks in the Pokrovsk direction, we'd be talking about an encirclement in Pokrovsk, with yet another armchair general urging an immediate withdrawal of the Ukrainian garrison from Kupyansk. This is the tangible military, political and psychological impact of the Kursk operation, an operation that, in case anyone hasn't noticed, is still ongoing. Ukrainian forces have developed a new aerial defense system using tethered aerostats as platforms for launching interceptor drones against incoming threats, according to images circulating on social media platforms. The system, mounted on balloons produced by Ukrainian startup Aerobavovna, appears designed to detect incoming Russian long-range kamikaze drones using infrared cameras before launching counter-drones to intercept them. The Warzone reports. Images show the current configuration includes a launcher for a single fixed-wing kamikaze interceptor drone and a sensor array suspended beneath the aerostat. The elevated position provides critical advantages for the early detection of threats. In general, elevating any sensor system helps provide a better line of sight field of view toward the horizon and improved look-down coverage. TWZ explains. The aerostat appears to function as both a detection platform and a launch system, with infrared sensors mounted underneath the balloon to spot approaching threats. Aerobavovna currently advertises its aerostats for surveillance, communications, and a signal relays for first-person view FPV kamikaze drones, making this application an extension of their existing capabilities. If the aerostat-mounted drone interceptor system works, it could offer a useful addition to Ukraine's defense arsenal that could be readily deployed across the country. The Warzone notes, adding that if the interceptor-armed aerostats are also relatively low cost and low footprint, they could be even more valuable for supplementing the Ukrainian military's other counter-drone capabilities. This development follows earlier Ukrainian innovations utilizing aerostats in the war, including a sensor system created by Ukrainian firm Kvartus that was designed to detect and locate enemy drone operators. The war zone highlights that similar elevated platforms have been deployed globally, including the U.S. Army's Joint Land Attack Cruise Missile Defense Elevated Netted Sensor System. Poland has also planned deployments of aerostat-based airspace and surface radar reconnaissance systems, partly in response to Russia's use of low-flying threats. The emergence of this system demonstrates Ukraine's continued innovation in countering Russian drone threats amid ongoing war and uncertain international military assistance. Earlier, a Ukrainian Miltech company, Skifttech, was awarded a contract by the U.S. Army for the development of advanced laser-based training simulators. This agreement marks the first time a Ukrainian company has been selected for such a project, positioning Skifttech alongside major global defense contractors.